Right now, Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call, powered by FanDuel Sportsbook.
All right, thanks a lot, Ken, and thank you for tuning into the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. I'm Rich Walsh. Give us a call tonight, 412-575-2600 on the Bordas and Bordas hotline. And we're talking about the Steelers, and will Ben Roethlisberger play? That's the big question right now. We don't know that. 4 players isolate Ben Roethlisberger, Vince Williams, the 2 bigger names on that list because Vance McDonald tested positive for COVID. But these guys, from what we're hearing, have tested negative so far, but they have to have numerous negative tests. Every day they got to test negative. They got to isolate from Steelers headquarters this entire week. And then we'll find out on Saturday if Ben and these guys will be able to go on Sunday. Now, I think everyone's hopeful that they'll be able to play, and everyone's hopeful that they don't get the virus and are able to play. But I still think the Steelers can win without Ben Roethlisberger. I still think the Steelers can win without Vince Williams, even though he's one of the best run stoppers in the NFL right now. I think the Steelers are that much better than the Bengals. I mean, they're big favorites at home for this game. So you obviously want Ben Roethlisberger in there. I think he's arguably, and maybe this is a debate right now that we can have tonight, he's arguably one of the top, one of the front runners for MVP right now in the league. I mean, you might disagree with me here, but I think Ben Roethlisberger, possibly MVP, Mike Tomlin, possibly Coach of the Year, right at the top of the list. They have to be, right? So I don't think the Bengals are an easy team. Like I said, and I've been saying this, and I know we've been talking about if you've been watching this program or maybe Sunday Night Sports Showdown, that I don't think the Steelers will be 10-0. I think they're going to lose. They're going to get upset one of these next 2 games. For me, I personally think it would be the Jacksonville game because you're looking ahead to that Thursday game on Thanksgiving, a short week. You kind of roll into Jacksonville like we're supposed to beat them like you did in Dallas. And I think that, for me, is a possible letdown game, and they will be 9-1 by the time that they get to before they get to the Ravens game. Now, usually the Steelers split with the Ravens. They didn't last year, but it's hard to pick that game. It's always going to be a 3-point game. Less than a touchdown. It's going to be a close game. It's a Thanksgiving night game. That'll be a good game. But I like where the Steelers are. They have 8 games left, and I don't see them doing any worse than 5-3. That's where I am with it. We have Paul Zeise in here with me tonight on the other side at the fan cam. How you doing, Paul?
I'm good. How are you tonight?
Good. You look at these 8 games, Paul. Do you disagree with me? I don't think there's any chance that they do any worse than 5-3.
Well, I mean, there's so many variables, you know. They've got to stay healthy. That's a big thing. I mean, as we saw today, and of course, I don't think it's going to turn into much more of anything than just them sitting out 4 or 5 days. But the COVID stuff can always be a factor. But looking at who they're playing, yes, you would think that 5-3 is the worst they would do. That would leave them at 13-3. I don't know if 13-3 is going to be enough, though, for them to be the number 1 seed.
Yeah, I don't think so either, and I think that's pretty important this year because there's only one team that gets a bye, and it's the number 1 seed. And I think that's in order to get to number 1 seed, you're already into the second round. And I think that's something the Steelers need to keep an eye on because I don't know if you potentially would want to, I don't know, wherever it falls, but I mean, having that extra week, and I guess it would be an extra 2 weeks, right, Paul?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing is, Rich, there's a great variable this year in the playoffs, and that is there's not going to be huge crowds. I mean, even if you play at Arrowhead, how many people are they putting in there now? 13,000 or something? 14,000? Yeah. If you play at Heinz Field, if you're an opposing player at Heinz Field, you're facing, 5,000, 6,000 fans? The Ravens, I think, have about 12, 13, 14,000 people go to their games. So I think it's a lot different. The home field advantage is probably a lot different in terms of the dynamics of what it actually means.
That's interesting, Paul, that you bring that up, and I want to touch on this before we go to break. But, there really isn't a home field advantage, right? Maybe the locker room, maybe just being comfortable in your own house instead of a hotel, but most of the home teams stay at the hotel anyways, stay away from their house. But Do you know, like getting into the betting of it, the lines? Have you noticed those lines moving to almost, because a neutral site is different than home field advantage, right? So I'm just wondering if Vegas is really taking that into consideration. If you've seen lines maybe move because there's no fans at games.
Yeah, I don't know if they've moved, but they probably. I'd have to really take a look at study it, but just basically, looking at them every week, it seems to me like home teams are not as big of favorites as they usually are. I mean, some games they are just because the two teams are so bad. But, that thing where you get – I wonder, that would be a great question for one of these Vegas sharps or whatever. Usually they say 3 points is what the home field is worth.
Yeah.
Without any fans in the stadium, does that change? I would be willing to bet it. Maybe it's only like 2.5 that they move the line or something like that.
I'll have to get my main man, Vegas Dave, on the phone here at some point, maybe in the next couple of days to answer that question. All right, we're going to take a break. And we're going to answer your questions coming up next. 412-575-2600 is number. Back in a couple minutes.